The Brothers McMullen, the first movie by Edward Burns, not only won the Sundance Film Festival, but according to Variety, was the most profitable film of 1995. Made for $25,000, it grossed over $10 million. Burns is back with a second effort, She's the One, backed by a studio instead of his parents. She's the One has a slightly bigger budget, and it revisits the theme of his first film, Irish-American brothers and their problems with women. Joining me now, actor and director and screenwriter Ed Burns. Welcome back.
Hey.
You always say Edward because of Ed Burns' confusion, or?
Well, yeah. I mean, my mom likes Edward,
yeah.
So I go with that. And Ed Burns, I always get the kooky business.
Yeah, exactly.
So
no, I understand.
Edward or Eddie, usually. I know.
You and I were talking just before we started this. It's been one heck of a year.
It has been a crazy, wild, incredible year.
Yeah, and you got a call from Bogdanovich.
Yeah, I got a call from him last Friday. He had just seen She's the One and apparently loved it. Right. And that night went out with his wife and rented McMullen and saw that. And they called me the next day to say they were going to be in New York and if we could get together for lunch. And it's funny because Last Picture Show is my favorite film of all time.
Of all time?
Of all time. So when I got the call, I was like, oh my, and I was terrified because, I've heard, sometimes it's not a good thing to meet your heroes. But this was great. We met for lunch and we're supposed to have lunch for about an hour. Ended up hanging out for about 4 or 5 hours. And of course, I was just picking his brain about every little thing.
And what's happened to Peter Bogdanovich?
He's doing now, he's doing a film in New York that starts shooting in January, and he just wrapped another one. He was talking about how, and sort of warning me about Hollywood and the studios and how on a number of occasions they have taken films away from him. They've gone in and recut. They forced him to do casting, and you get at a certain point where, you listen to these people. And he said he's got a lot of regrets about, sometimes letting the studio dictate some of the choices he's made. And
basically was saying to you, don't let the system engulf you.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about my new project, and we're talking about casting, and I was just telling him what some of the different ideas were, and he said, you're doing the right thing the way you're making these films. Stick by your guns.
What's your next project?
It's very different. It's called Long Time Nothing New, and it's a drama. It's a gray piece, really. It's about gray characters in a gray environment. It's a depressed working class beachfront community during the winter is the setting. And there's sort of a gray, out on Long Island. Right. And there's sort of a gray morality. And it takes a look at a woman who's about to turn 30 and recognizing that the American dream, or what she thinks is the American dream, is passing her by, and trying to come to terms with that and figuring out, does she stay in this small town and have the life that the town sort of dictates she have, or does she get out? And if she does get out, what's out there? And can she fulfill her dreams?
Yeah. Your life is remarkable. I mean, it really has been your first movie. I mean, your first cover of a magazine here. Yeah. We like that. This is Time Out in New York. Is She the One? Edward Burns and Maxine Bonds re-team for the Brothers McMullen follow-up, She is the One. Follow-up is what people are looking at, and they're saying, and sometimes favorably, sometimes saying, is he just doing the same theme? Yeah. It is a relationship within an Irish-American family. Yeah. Here, two brothers primarily. What say you about plumbing the same waters?
It's funny, at the premiere, and it sounds like I'm name-dropping here, but at the premiere of the film, I got to meet William Kennedy, who is
the great writer.
The great writer,
right.
And one of my favorite writers. And I brought that up to him. I said,
why write all those books about Albany?
Yeah, well, basically, all about Albany, all about, the same family and similar characters and similar themes and situations. And when I look at my favorite filmmakers, Scorsese and Woody Allen, they too cover a lot of the same territory and similar characters and similar themes. And I was asking him, I said, I'm getting a little heat for doing that, for sort of staying on my home turf. And he said, don't listen to them. He said, you look at all the greats, and or at least the people that he loves and admires. And he said, that's what they do. They have subjects and themes that they're passionate about, and they constantly go back to them time and time again. And that's the kind of filmmaker I want to be. I mean, I don't want to go off and make action films.
But was any of this about being safe, too, to follow up, in a sense, with themes that you understood, ideas that you were familiar with, characters that you could fashion?
For me, that wasn't the case, because I wrote the script for She's the One after we finished shooting McMullen, but before McMullen was accepted into Sundance. I had about 8 months there where it looked like McMullen was just going to be a failure. And I wrote She's the One thinking, all right, I'll do another $25,000 film about, another group of people. So I was sort of in a good head when I wrote it. I mean, it wasn't so safe then to write it because, McMullen at that time was a failure. So I don't think so. I mean, these are the people I'm interested in. And when you make a film, you have to spend a year or a year and a half of your life with them. And when I write them, sometimes even longer than that. And I want to spend that time with people I am passionate about and I care about, and themes and a world that I feel the same way about.
What happened? What's different about having $3.5 million from the studio rather than $25 million from your dad?
Well,
or your dad's friends, or whoever was financing the first film.
You get to pay the actors first of all, which is great.
You don't have to beg quite as much.
Yeah. I mean, you get lights.
Yeah.
We got permits. We could shoot in bars and restaurants and the little things.
You could
like
even
that.
build a set, maybe.
We couldn't afford to do. Could not
too
afford.
Far.
Yeah,
that's right.
It really what it does is it affords you more creative freedom. I mean, from just sitting down at the computer writing the script, I got to open up the lives of the characters in a way that I couldn't do with McMullen.
Because open up the lives because you could do more.
I could do more. I mean, I just had access to more locations, and we can see them at work. Whereas in McMullen, it was, you're out at Mom's house, and you're sitting in the living room, you're having a beer, and you're talking. That's about all we could afford. And there were just other things with moving the camera and lighting and costume design and production design that help you tell your story, that in McMullen were never even considered. It was like, just show up in jeans and a T-shirt.
And if you'd had $7 million, what would you have done?
What would we have done? Probably just a few more takes. When we found out we had $3.5 million.
One take, Eddie, you are?
No, we were, we were still running and gunning on $3.5 million. Because when we found out we had that much money, we thought there is no way we're going to be able to spend all of this. And after the first day, we knew it wasn't going to be enough.
And the dream is to make the great American film about a New York cop like your dad.
Yeah.
Not so much a cop like your dad, but your dad happens to be a
Yeah, I mean,
cop.
my dad was a cop in town for 28 years, and my Uncle Pat and my cousin Andy is up in the 2-5 now. My cousin Barry, my cousin John are all cops now. So really, I want to make sort of the godfather of New York law enforcement films. Sort of a multi-generational look at what it's like to, A, be a cop, be a part of a cop family, and what all that means. But I'm a long way from that.
Because what? Because it'll take a lot more seasoning, because the story has to be cemented in your mind?
Yeah, I'm just, I mean, that's a massive film and a massive undertaking, and I don't think, there's time for me to get there. I'm not that good a filmmaker or writer just yet to make that film. And like you said, I'm 28. I got a couple of years to work on it.
All right, let's talk about this film. We're going to take a look at this. Two brothers, both married. One's a taxi driver. One's works on Wall Street. There's competition. There's competition because of an overlay of some of the same women. Yeah. Right? Tell me more.
Yeah, these are two guys. I wanted to take a look at sibling rivalry and take a look at how two guys who grew up in the same house, listening to the same lousy advice from their father, how they could end up on total opposite ends of the spectrum and really just have some fun with it. We exaggerate some of the situations like the boxing scene. But really wanted to sort of say, at what point do you put that to bed? When do you grow up and sort of become men as opposed to the bickering little boys that their dads treat them like?
But the tools of their competition are women.
Yeah, the Heather character is, she kind of gets in the middle and disrupts things.
All right, take a look at this. This is a conversation between, this is interesting, parallel conversation between Francis, Mike McGlone, who character the brother, and his wife Jennifer Aniston, and Mickey, who plays you. Take a look. Here it is.
Listen, he's a cab driver. She's a waitress. They live in a fourth floor walk-up with no electricity. Okay?
Yeah, but do you see how they're always all over one another? I bet they have sex all the time. Does he ever tell you stuff like that?
What? Granted, this man is my brother, but I do not ask him how often he's having sex with this girl.
And what kind of numbers are we talking? Like, what, 5, 6, 7 times a day?
Listen, I'm not telling you anything, okay?
Bet it's a lot. Remember how much we used to do it when we first got married?
Yeah, sure. But, honey, everyone's like that when they first meet. Then you get into a groove, slow down. It would be impossible to keep up that level of intensity for an extended period of time. I mean, you'd hurt yourself.
That's why your back's all up, bud. We're doing a what? Round the clock. Okay?
What kind of sick degenerate are you? Okay, this is my wife you're talking about.
So where's this scene come from?
A lot of the stuff comes from me and my buddies and me and my brother.
Just
that constant badgering and emasculating that we do to one another all the time. So, I think so.
yeah.
Yeah.
When you sit down to write a screenplay, how is it different than writing anything else? I mean, it's driven by characters, I guess.
Yeah, my stuff is character driven, and that's usually where I start. I'll start with a character, or in this case, it was these two brothers who really don't like one another, and I'll do a rough outline before I sit down to write, and then usually I ignore it and just kind of let the characters take me where they're going to take me, and a lot of times it's a good thing, and a lot of times,
And are you thinking of yourself as one so that you inhabit the character?
Sometimes. With McMullen, I knew I was going to be Barry throughout when I sat down. With this one, in the first draft, I kept flip-flopping back and forth between which brother I was going to play.
And why was that?
I just didn't know. And I was having a good time with both of them. But after I finished the first draft, and I knew I wanted Mike McGlone to play the other brother. I thought Mike was sort of better suited for Francis, so I kind of then, from there, shaped them.
Why was Mike better suited for Francis?
Mike is a pretty intense guy. And no, he can relate to Francis. So.
All right, this is another scene before we talk about it. This is where the boxing scene. Set it up for me.
Yeah, this is again, Francis has told Mickey that he is seeing Mickey's ex-girlfriend, the woman that broke Mickey's heart, and they're out at the house, and they're about to come to blows, and the dad knows how to settle this. He's going to take him outside, and they're going to...
Roll tape.
All right.
I hope you realize how stupid you all look. You're grown men. You're supposed to be brothers.
Sorry, Hope, but sometimes it's the only way you can solve these things. Okay, girls.
I'm not going to fight you, friend.
I know that, Mick. I'm gonna beat you. You're gonna bleed. Don't worry, shouldn't take long.
We got to do this. I mean, we got to do this with the gloves and everything. What are we, in 5th grade again?
Oh, you should have thought of that before you called her a whore, tough guy.
He's right, Mick. Now, come on. All right, no punching below the belt, no kicking, and Francis, no biting. All right, let's go. May the best man win.
25 years I've been waiting for the day I'd be bigger, tougher, stronger than you. When you go down, it's gonna hurt, baby. I'm gonna kick you in the ass. You ready? You ready to be humiliated in front of your new wife and your father? You are an ugly bitch. I pity you.
Great punch, Mick. You always did have a great right. Come on, Dorothy. It's all over.
A couple of things about the character. Maxine is your lady.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, 7 years we've been together.
7 years?
Yeah.
And is she from, where's she?
She's from East Hampton. Actually, she was raised out in San Diego with her mom, and then in high school she moved out to East Hampton with her dad. Yeah. So that's where we met out there.
And Mahoney is wonderful.
Nobody better.
Yeah.
Love that guy.
Did you know him before this?
No. We're at the same agency, and before we even started casting the film, I got a call saying, I hope you don't mind, but John Mahoney saw the script, and he really would like to play Mr. Fitzpatrick. Would you meet him? And I said, no. I said, if John Mahoney wants to play Mr. Fitz, he is Mr. Fitz. And he was great. I mean, if anything, it was funny. In scenes with Mike and I, John kind of took us under his wing. I mean, I was constantly asking him, how am I doing here? Is this okay? What could I do differently? He's a great, great guy, and he came up with a lot of the funny lines. While during rehearsals, like that last line that ends the scene, "Come on, Dorothy, it's all over." That was John's.
What do you think separates you from everybody who wants to be you? Actor, screenwriter, director. A couple of films. One won the Sundance Festival. You got to meet Redford, who's become a kind of mentor.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
What separates you from all the others who desperately want to do the same thing, you think?
I think, you know, I mean, a lot of it for me was right place, right time. I
Yes.
mean, after McMullen was done, we sent that film out to 7 film festivals, every distribution company, you know, the Miramaxes and the New Lines.
And they all said what?
And they all said, this isn't edgy enough. This is not an independent film.
Yeah.
You know, that's one thing I've been criticized about, that I don't make independent films because the subject matter they don't think is far enough outside the mainstream.
So it won't appeal to the same audience that normally independent films appeal
I guess.
to.
I have no idea. I always thought independent filmmaking had to do with, you know, individual vision and someone who, you know, who's making personal films.
Yeah.
But
And I bet they think of people like the Coen brothers.
yeah, probably. Or I don't know. You know, I really don't. I don't know what they're thinking. Actually, I'm just not edgy enough for them.
Do you want to act in all the films you make?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I mean, I do have one project that I want to do that I would have a very tiny part in, if any part at all, acting-wise. But it is fun. You know, I mean, I do enjoy it. And it is a way for me to, I don't know if it's ego or what, but a way for me to sort of maintain as much control over the finished product as I can. So,
Yeah. So what about all those offers that come in to go do somebody else's film? You can't do it because...
I just haven't found the project yet that I want to do. I mean, I'm going to do it. After my next film, I'm going to take a year off and act in a few films.
Despite Redford, who you owe a lot to
Yep.
for good advice, who said you had something and gave you confidence, despite Bogdanovich, who made the film that you most admire, your hero is Woody Allen.
Yeah. Yeah. He's the first filmmaker that I was introduced to that I knew as a filmmaker, as opposed to just a movie. You know, I never thought about who wrote these things, who directed them. My mom turned me on to him. And that's the first time I sat down and I said, wow, this is different from the stuff I'm used to going to see on Friday night with my girlfriend. And then I just started renting everything that he made and watching them over and over again. And I guess he and Scorsese are the two guys that I love. And I think it's because they're both New York-based filmmakers. They both, like we said before, you know, they both deal with religion. They cover, you know, the same themes over and over.
And they both make personal films.
Personal films. They deal with family and relationships and people. And, you know, it was one of the things when I was talking to Peter Bogdanovich, he was talking about the Howard Hawks film, To Have and Have Not, which is one of my favorite films. And he was saying how Howard Hawks hated plot. You know, he said the one thing he hated about that film was that, you know, was the plot line. He said, I love the characters and dealing there, but, you know, the whole thing with...
Why would he hate plot?
I guess he was just more in love with character. I mean, I feel the same way. Anytime I'm watching a character piece and we have to go into, you know, that subplot about, you know, the character is an architect and they're trying to get the building set up downtown.
You don't like that?
That's when I start to fall asleep. I like to deal with the little things that make people tick. You know, that's, you know.
Well, then what makes Mickey tick in this film and what makes Francis tick?
Well, Mick doesn't. I think that's what he's trying to figure out. He doesn't really know what he's about. He has everyone is telling him what he should be about, and I think part of his problem is trying to find himself. Fran, what makes him tick is I don't know. He's a lot of ego. He's about he's a self-absorbed, materialistic guy, and he's about, you know, bigger and better. That's why, you know, he's trading in Renee for, you know, the bigger and better trophy in Heather. So
Edward Burns, the movie She's the One. Thank you as always.
Thanks a
Pleasure
lot.
to see you again.
All right.
Take care. Coming up, Joyce Carol Oates. Stay with us.